My name is Nora Thompson. I'm 38 years old, and I make a living organizing truth after it's already been torn apart. Last Sunday, my father blocked his own front door with his body and said calmly, "Return the 40,000 your son stole, or stay out." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The doorframe pressed into his shoulder like a judge's bench. The hallway light behind him cut his outline into something rigid, final. Beside him, my older sister Brooke folded her arms, cardigan neat, mouth tilted in concern, and added, "Piper saw him near the safe." Every face in that room nodded. Not angrily, not dramatically. Just decided, like a verdict reached before I'd even crossed the threshold. The house smelled like roast beef and lemon cleaner, the scent my mother always used when she wanted peace to look like effort. My son Jonah's hand tightened around mine until our knuckles aligned. He was 14 and already learning the geometry of blame. "I didn't," he whispered. "Not here." I tried to breathe, but the house felt smaller than the accusation. Walls leaning in, history humming under the floorboards. I'm used to evidence, labels, timelines, not whispers passed like currency. What they didn't know, what no one in that room could imagine, was that I had kept everything. Receipts, messages, screenshots, every small inconsistency they thought had vanished because I never made a scene. I didn't say a word. I nodded once, turned, and walked my son back into the daylight. Growing up in the Thompson house was like being cast in a play where the script was written for one lead, and it was never me. My father, Frank Thompson, was a union electrician who believed emotions were a malfunction. My mother, Lorna, translated discomfort into chores and silence. And Brooke was 2 years older and understood instinctively when to cry. She sparkled on cue. She apologized without consequence. She knew how to turn stillness into sympathy. When she got straight A's, Dad taped her report card to the fridge with a gold star magnet. When I won the county science fair, he said, "Good job, Nora," and used the same magnet to hold a coupon for brake pads. The difference wasn't loud. It hummed, low and constant, like a light that never shuts off. Every Friday night, Dad pulled out the safe. A black metal box tucked behind his flannel shirts. He wiped his hands before touching it, like it was sacred. Inside were envelopes labeled in block letters. Taxes, emergency, house. Later, one marked 40K, his dream number. His idea of security. He showed Brooke the inside once when she was 17. I know because I heard her brag to a friend that she held the family future in her hands. He never showed me. When I asked him once, half joke, half plea, if he'd teach me the system, he didn't even look up. "You're not the money type, Nora," he said. "You're the fixer. Every family needs one." I laughed then. That's what you do when the floor drops an inch beneath your feet. Brooke could crash a car, cry in the kitchen, and walk away with a new one. I broke a plate once while washing dishes and got a lecture that lasted longer than the meal. At the time, I thought that was just family. Now I know it was training. After college, I took a job that suited me. Quiet halls, fluorescent lights, names turned into tags. I learned early that the dead don't lie, and evidence will always tell the story if you're patient enough. When my marriage ended 4 years ago, my ex-husband said, "You live like an autopsy. Everything's after the fact." He wasn't wrong. Jonah was 10 then, quiet, observant, too aware for his age. He watched me sign custody papers and whispered, "It's okay, Mom." It wasn't, but his voice sounded like oxygen. We built a rhythm after that, half the week together, mornings splitting stale muffins in the car, evenings with him dismantling broken electronics like puzzles. Once he asked, "Why do people lie?" I told him the truth, because they're scared of what the truth costs. He nodded like he understood. I hoped he didn't. Brooke, meanwhile, polished her life until it gleamed. She married Trevor, a man who called himself an entrepreneur and lived like an influencer. He talked about burn rate and equity, but the only thing growing was their debt. Every few months, Brooke had a crisis. Daycare, taxes, deposits, misunderstandings. Dad's safe became their silent ATM. Once she called me crying about a small bridge loan. I said no. The next day she called again, voice lighter. "Trevor talked to Dad. Don't stress." That was code for "you'll pay later." And I did, in resentment, in silence, in the quiet currency of being the daughter who didn't rock the boat. I started keeping duplicate files at work. Chain of custody mattered there. I didn't know it yet, but that habit was about to save my son. The night we were accused, Jonah squeezed my hand at the door. "We can still play chess later, right?" he asked, like routine could protect us. "Yes," I said. And before we reached the car, before the house disappeared in the rearview mirror, I made myself another promise. The next time they came for me, I would be ready. By the time we reached my apartment that night, Jonah had gone quiet in the way that meant he was thinking too hard for a 14-year-old. I unlocked the door, flicked on the light, and set my keys down in the same ceramic bowl they'd lived in for years. Routine mattered, especially now. Jonah dropped his backpack by the couch and went straight to the kitchen table, where the chessboard was already waiting. He set the pieces with care, lining them up like soldiers who didn't yet know the rules of the war they were about to fight. "You want white or black?" I asked. "White," he said after a pause. "I want to see what's coming." I smiled, but it didn't reach my chest. That night, after he went to bed, I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and pulled out a thin accordion file. It wasn't labeled. It didn't need to be. Inside were years of quiet decisions, printed emails, screenshots, notes scribbled in the margins of envelopes, proof I never intended to use until I had to. Growing up, I learned early that in our family, love came with conditions. Brooke met hers effortlessly. I learned to anticipate needs instead. Fix the porch light, reset the garage keypad, explain Mom's phone plan, again. Brooke's requests were always sugar-coated. "Nora, you're the best. Nora, you always know what to do." Sometimes she called me Nor, like we were close enough for nicknames. I knew the punchline. I'd solve the problem, and she'd walk away lighter. Trevor started showing up with craft beer and jargon. He talked in bright loops that went nowhere. "You're a process person," he'd say, clapping my shoulder. "I'm big picture." It sounded like an insult wearing cologne. Holidays became inventories. Brooke got gifts with shine and weight. I got tools and a handshake. Once, at Thanksgiving, Mom slipped her wedding ring into the safe because turkey grease made it slide. "Put it back after dessert," she said. I watched Dad write an index card. Ring, temporary. And tuck it on top of the envelopes like a bookmark in a book he never finished. By pie, the ring was back on her finger. I don't know why I remember that card more than the ring itself. Maybe because it was proof that even sentiment in our house needed documentation. The summer everything started to fracture was the summer of Piper's unicorn party. Brooke's daughter turned 9 under a balloon arch that scraped the ceiling. Jonah stood beside me by the cooler, reading drink labels like he was studying for an exam. "Can we get pizza after?" he asked. I did the math in my head while Brooke announced a surprise photo booth. "Yes," I said, and meant eventually. Driving home, a paper crown sat on the passenger seat like a joke neither of us laughed at. I wondered when ordinary started costing so much. 2 months before the accusation, Brooke called crying from a dealership. The Lexus logo hovered behind her voice like a stage prop. "We're drowning," she said. "Trevor's equity hits in Q4. Dad's being a jerk. We just need a bridge." She texted me a photo of the lease spread across her console. She wanted advice. I typed a paragraph, deleted it, then sent 6 words. "It's not my business." It should have ended there. It didn't. At work, I lived inside timestamps. Cold air bit through latex gloves. Barcode beeps and label printers soothed me. My coworker once called me a monk with a laminator. Metadata remembers who touched what and when. That line followed me home like a mantra. When Dad asked me to talk on the porch a few weeks later, I knew it was about money before he opened his mouth. His beer sweated into the wood railing. "This isn't how I was raised," he said, eyes on the yard. My father would have thrown me out for asking. He said it like a spell, like repeating it made the withdrawals invisible. "Brooke's stressed," I said. He sighed. The sound of a man laying down a burden he had already decided to pick back up. Just this once. He went inside. I stayed on the steps and listened to the safe keypad complain under his fingers. The last Sunday before everything cracked, Mom made roast with carrots, the meal she used when she wanted peace to look edible. Brooke arrived late, laughing into her phone. Trevor hovered like a man unsure of his mark. Dad stood the whole time. He does that when he wants to remind you whose house you're in. That night, after Jonah fell asleep, I created a new folder on my computer. Just in. I printed Brooke's Lexus text, pulled bank statements, ordered tab dividers. It felt theatrical. It also felt like safety gear. On Tuesday, Mom stopped by my office with cookies and a question that sounded like a confession. "Do you think we should write down who uses the safe?" she asked softly. My hands smelled like coffee grounds for an hour after she left. I told myself I was imagining things. I wasn't. When the accusation landed at the door that Sunday, I didn't just hear words. I heard the pattern. Family means no paperwork. Family means no questions. Family means we already decided. Jonah's fingers were bones and trust when he said, I didn't, not here. And no one wanted to hear the second half of that sentence. We left. At the red light, Jonah asked if we could still play chess after dinner. Yes, I said again. But before the board came out, before the pieces touched, I made a decision I'd been avoiding for years. This time I wasn't fixing the problem. I was documenting it. I started at my kitchen table. It's small, scarred from heat and years of rushed dinners. The same table where I signed divorce papers, helped Jonah with fractions, and learned how quiet a room can get when the truth hasn't decided what shape it wants yet. That night, it became something else. A workspace. I spread out folders like I was building a map. Bank statements, safe logs, text messages, screenshots. I labeled everything in pencil first. Mistakes were allowed at this stage. Jonah hovered nearby, pretending to read while watching me from the corner of his eye. You don't have to help, I said. I know, he replied, but I want to. So I let him hand me paper clips and color code tabs. It felt wrong, involving a child in adult damage, but it felt worse pretending this wasn't already his fight too. The first thing I confirmed was simple. There had never been $40,000 in that safe. Dad's handwritten logs told that story without emotion. Dates, amounts, totals. The math didn't bend, no matter how many times I checked it. So why accuse Jonah? Because fear needs a target smaller than itself. I called the credit union the next morning. I used neutral words: discrepancy, audit, clarification. The woman on the line shifted tone when I said them. People always do. By noon, I had confirmation emails and withdrawal timelines. By 2, I had printed copies highlighted in yellow. By 4, I stopped shaking. That evening, I walked across the street to Mr. Weldon's house. Retired, baseball caps, believed in being careful. He'd installed a doorbell camera last winter after a kid stole his snow shovel. When I explained I needed footage from late September, he squinted at me like I'd asked to borrow his bones. What's the occasion? He asked. Neighborhood watch, I lied. He liked that. We scrubbed through footage together, coffee tasting like burned toast between us. Cars passed. Leaves fell. Time behaved. Then there she was. Brooke, September 30th, 2:18 p.m. Leaving my parents' front door with a stiff envelope tucked against her side. Mr. Weldon whistled. Must have been a big bill. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The next piece came from a coworker who never asked questions when I didn't offer explanations. She cleaned the still frame, verified metadata, and sent it back with a note that said, "Try not to stare at this too long." The night before the meeting, I didn't sleep. I paced the apartments like I was checking doors in a place that had already been breached. Around 1 a.m., Jonah stepped into the hallway, hair sticking up in defiance. "You're doing the face," he said. "What face?" "The one you do when you're about to tell someone important they're wrong." I laughed. It sounded thin. "Are you scared?" he asked. "Yes." He nodded once. "Good. That means you'll be careful." In the morning, I remembered the index card. Ring, temporary. I dug through copies of Dad's logs and found it again. Handwriting that didn't match his. I compared it to Trevor's signature from the Lexus lease. Same swoop, same lazy tail. It wasn't proof of theft. It was proof of habit. I didn't bring that page with me, not yet. Wednesday arrived without drama, which somehow felt worse. At 7 p.m., I carried a banker's box into my parents' living room. The wood table dented under its weight. No one apologized for the sound. Brooke crossed her arms. Trevor leaned against the wall. Dad stood by the doorway again. "Let's hear it," Brooke said. I met her eyes. No interruptions. I started small. Dad's logs, then bank deposits, then the Lexus lease. Trevor's color drained first. When I slid the camera still across the table, the room stopped breathing. "That's you," I said calmly. "September 30th, verified." Brooke stammered. Trevor reached for his keys. "This is insane," he muttered. "I didn't sign up for this." He left. The door slammed. Piper jumped. Brooke didn't chase him. Silence sat down with us. "There was never $40,000, I said, so Jonah couldn't have stolen it." Dad looked smaller suddenly. "What happens now?" he asked. I closed the box. "Now," I said, "you apologize to my son, in writing." No one stopped me when I left. The air outside felt cold and clean, like something had finally broken loose. At home, the box sat by the door, half open, a mouthful of truth. The phone started ringing before sunrise. First my mother, then my father, then Brooke. None of them left voicemails, just missed calls stacking up like digital knocks from people who didn't know how to enter without permission anymore. I turned the phone face down. Jonah came into the kitchen in socked feet, his chessboard tucked under one arm. He scanned my face the way kids do when they're checking whether the storm has passed. "Did it work?" he asked. "It worked," I said. "That doesn't mean it's finished." He nodded, already understanding more than he should have had to. That Friday, Mom showed up unannounced with a container of roast chicken like it was a peace treaty. She hovered in my kitchen, eyes cataloging what hurt. "Your father feels embarrassed," she said. "Good," I replied. She flinched. "That's not kind." "No," I said gently. "It's corrective." Brooke texted nonstop for 2 days. Accusations, guilt, photos of Piper's art projects. I didn't respond until Jonah read over my shoulder and said quietly, "She didn't do anything wrong." "I know," I said. "Adults did." I sent one line. "When you apologize to Jonah, we can talk." 2 nights later, Brooke stood at my door. No makeup. Grocery bag shaking in her hand. "I messed up," she said. "I blame Jonah because I knew you'd fix it. I didn't move. I didn't soften. I need you to apologize to him," I said. "No excuses." She did. She cried. He listened. He accepted. Dad never apologized the way I needed him to. He bought a new safe, a better lock, a sign-in sheet. "Treat it like it matters," I told him. He said I always thought I was smarter. "I'd just keep better records," I said, and hung up. We built our own rhythm after that. Wednesday breakfast at the diner. Hot chocolate. Chess. No doors blocked. No envelopes guarded. Peace didn't arrive with applause. It arrived quietly, like a kid laughing where he used to flinch. My name is Nora Thompson. I'm not chasing revenge. I'm documenting peace.